That's the big question everybody has. And I spoke to an ETF expert yesterday, and he said, I'm not optimistic if that a Solana ETF is going to get approved this cycle because the pathway has been you have to have a futures in place, and then usually there's a
Mm,
time period where they see the correlation between the futures and the spot market before
yeah.
approving the spot ETF. However, he did say if BlackRock files for it, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's probably true.
This content is brought to you by BitGo, which is one of the top crypto custodians in the crypto industry. BitGo works with many big companies and brands, such as Pantera Capital, Bitstamp, and Bitcoin IRA. Nike also selected BitGo to power its wallets for its NFTs. And BitGo has many great services, such as hot wallets, custodial wallets, self-managed cold wallets, and NFT wallets. Many institutions trust BitGo with its top-level security and incredible services such as being able to deploy your capital while it's in custody, which includes lending, borrowing, trading, staking, DeFi access, and more. If you'd like to learn more about BitGo, please visit bitgo.com, link in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, Crypto Water Cooler Series, episode 15. I'm Tony Edward, and with me is David, the co host of the Next Block YouTube channel. Welcome in, David. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Ready for some excitement in the crypto space over the next, couple weeks, months. It seems like it's, that lull we had has passed. It seems like we bottomed out and we're ready for the next big push up. So I'm ready for it.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm ready for green candles. It's, when you have that sideways chop, it's kind of boring. And we found a bounce, but then we've been sideways chopping a little bit for the past week or so. So I'm ready, man. I'm ready for this thing to go crazy. And look, we maybe something of the catalyst is like what we just saw this past weekend with the Bitcoin conference. Donald Trump coming out, Bitcoin Reserve, fire Gary Gensler. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also a lot of it's getting to that part of the cycle where there's a lot of theatrics that you have to watch out for as well. And so that's something I'm also keeping my eye on just like what's just getting overly hyped, what's real, what's fluff and stuff like that. But obviously we're going to dive into some of those news. So, but yeah, a lot of stuff nonetheless is going on.
So let's talk about Donald Trump, man. Look, it wasn't just him; it was RFK Jr. as well at the Bitcoin conference. There were some Democrat congressmen that were there as well. But the big clip that's going viral is Donald Trump saying, "I will fire SEC Chair Gary Gensler on day one and replace him." If I'm Gary Gensler and the people working at the SEC, I'm like, what the hell is happening? Because how did the SEC go from an agency that is supposed to protect investors to become hated by politicians, by retail investors, and everybody else?
Yeah, it's in and like I said earlier, it's kind of hard to know what's real. Like, is that something he's really going to follow through with if he were to get elected president? And what's just, what's trying to pander to voters, especially even at the Bitcoin conference. I didn't watch like, a ton of it. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I did see a lot of clips, a lot of, just bits and pieces from here of what Trump said, RFK, and just all the other people, that kind of attended. And it does seem like Trump is still like he's trying to learn really what Bitcoin is maybe and really understand it and use it. But I do think a lot of what he's doing is just trying to get votes, right? And that's what
Right.
most politicians are out here doing. I do think RFK is more sound on like actually understanding Bitcoin and being maybe someone better to have in office for like good regulation and honestly having really smart people put into those pieces. Whereas Trump just seems like he might just put into place and fire like if he knows people hate someone, he'd be like, hey, I'll get rid of him. And oh, you want Larry Fink to be in charge of, this? I'll put Larry Fink. Like, it's almost like whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do just to get what I want. And so that's the way I kind of feel about that. But, nonetheless, if you're just a holder of crypto, it's bullish, right? I mean, I would assume that God candle is coming soon, where Bitcoin's just going to rip to new all-time highs, or we're going to see alts and everything follow. But it does make me wonder what they are actually going to do with policy and regulation and all the like once they get into office, which is why I think coming into the next year, could be really interesting year for crypto, depending upon, some of those things. I think Gary Gensler should have been gone a long time ago.
Right.
I don't think he's protecting anyone but his own interests and people he's probably connected to. And I think that's just been very, very evident with all the court stuff, the lawsuits that they've done. I mean, they literally just maybe he went to work that day after and said, "Okay, guys, maybe we need to change some things because I don't want to lose my job."
Yeah, man. It's fascinating. And you brought up some great points. Like, look, politicians are gonna be politicians, right? They're gonna say what you need to hear or want to hear so that they can get your vote, but usually they don't are not able to fulfill all the promises they've campaigned on. So
Yeah,
I think we have to keep that in mind, whether it's Trump, Kamala Harris, RFK, it doesn't matter what party they're in. Politics is politics. So well, what I'm happy about, and you mentioned it, is the tone shift. It's that
hmm,
political is in the sorry, excuse me, crypto's in the limelight. And as a politician, you can't ignore it. And
yeah,
that is a sign from the macro of adoption, of
mm,
inception in the mind that you cannot just say, oh, I don't know anything about that because you're going to look like an idiot. So crypto has become ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Pop culture, politics, TradFi. And that's bullish as a crypto holder, especially those of us who've been here early in multiple cycles. So it's exciting times, but we do have to, as you mentioned, keep these politicians accountable. Okay,
yeah.
you campaign on this stuff. Let's say you get into office. What are you going to do? I need to see action. But even if Donald Trump doesn't fire Gary Gensler, the point that is taking place here, it is the narratives, the optics, and big
Yeah.
part of politics is that.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's the thing. It's like it's what really happens on the other side of it and what's going to transpire in the years to come. Like right now, it's amazing. It's great. Everyone's excited. I still though am kind of wondering like what's actually going to get the normies and this retail adoption excited about crypto because that's where I'm still like, I think this last, somewhat run up we saw in alts where some things kind of ran, others obviously ran hotter. A lot of memes took off like wildfire, and we still kind of saw that memes took the spotlight, right? But that obviously within 2 months, maybe, some even less, almost all of that was gone. Like most alts and most meme coins had fell 80, 90, some of them rugged and fell, completely gone. And that's where I'm still like, these politicians or presidents, they're talking about crypto and what it's going to do to change the future and tokenization, but we're still not really seeing a lot of those things being built yet. And that's where I'm still wondering where is the retail? What are they going to get excited about in this next push, especially if you have presidents, politicians really pushing it. And I did think that Trump's comment on, adding Bitcoin as a reserve, saying we're going to, the US government's going to buy Bitcoin. We want to be a leader in that. It seemed like RFK was in a similar stance that he wanted to be a leader with the United States, which is also interesting with Germany selling all of their Bitcoin and who knows who else is out there selling into this, kind of sideways chop of Bitcoin. But that is, I think, a bullish thing for Bitcoin holders. It's yet to be seen really for the rest of the landscape, Ethereum, Solanas, Cardanos, and whatnot, what they're going to do to really capitalize on that market share moving forward.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I've been thinking about that. What are the catalysts? Is it what Donald Trump and RFK said, putting Bitcoin in a balance sheet, or is it in conjunction with other things? Maybe we get surprised that the Senate is able to pass crypto regulations like the House did earlier this year, right? That was a surprise. No one
Yeah.
saw that coming. And the Democrats coming out and supporting it. Maybe another catalyst is Kamala Harris feeling the pressure from Trump and RFK that, oh, I need to have a stance on this. I can't ignore it. Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Gary Gensler crashed the car. It's on fire. I need to put that fire out and come out and say, hey, I'm going to embrace crypto. I'm going to help pass legislation, yada, yada. You send a bill to my desk, I'll sign it if I become, right? Maybe it's a combination of these things. Or I don't know, something else happens, something
Yeah.
big. Like last
Yeah.
cycle, it was Tesla, Elon, right?
Right.
That
He's
started the
kind of
whole
said
thing.
he's going to stay away and
Yeah.
not really talk about crypto. I was going to ask a question while we're still talking about, the political landscape. Do you think that Kamala Harris actually understands, do you think she has a better understanding of crypto than what Biden did? Or do you think, again, it's literally like she's just a puppet for Elizabeth Warren, Gary Gensler, and those people? Like, do you think she actually has her own stance stance on on if crypto's good, bad, or do you think she's just again following commands, kind of like we saw Biden do?
At first, I thought she was just following commands like Biden was with from Elizabeth Warren, but then I heard she reached out to Mark Cuban, and Mark Cuban
Mm,
verified the comments. And then I saw that Ro Khanna and some of these other top Democrats were leading initiatives, and they're in her ear saying, "Hey,
yeah,
look, you guys got to fix this, right?
yeah,
We can't have this issue." I actually just published my interview with Congressman Wally Nickel. He was at the Bitcoin conference. I published it this morning where he said, I penned a letter with other Democrats to the DNC saying we have to change our stance on crypto and reset the conversation. So I'm more optimistic, although
mm,
I'm of the mindset you show me, don't just talk,
yeah,
show me.
exactly.
I need to see Kamala Harris come out of her mouth the same way Trump is saying stuff. I'm going to help blah 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 regulate crypto and pass legislation and make sure jobs stay here in the United States. Until
Yeah,
I hear that, it's all just fugazi. They
yeah.
say whatever you want.
And I would just love a president or a person leading the country who, when they put a sentence together and they talk about what they're going to do, it actually makes sense. Like so many times, it's like, we've had Biden and even Kamala Harris, a lot of times with the things that they say, it's like you literally watch a minute clip and they didn't say anything. They literally like will take a question, repeat it back to you, and just kind of talk about the question instead of answering or giving any definitive plan. And that's why I honestly still think someone like RFK is like possibly the best solid option. But, it's with the two-party system we have, I just really don't think, it doesn't seem like that's gonna, fly through. But we'll see. Could get interesting, especially with Biden dropping out and things like that.
Yeah, and look, crypto should not be a partisan issue. It
Mm,
shouldn't even be an election issue. But we know
no.
the root cause of this was Elizabeth Warren. She
Yeah.
started all this nonsense, and I think that a lot of Democrats are waking up like, yeah, this is crazy. We're not going to die on this hill, and that's why a lot of them voted with the Republicans to pass Fit 21 out of the House and repeal SOB 121. But is it too late, right? That's the
Yeah.
big question because the pivot should have came earlier. Look, and even the Biden situation, maybe they should have kicked out Biden earlier.
I
But
mean, who knows? I mean, we got, it's crazy to even like with Twitter, like I can't even get on it now because it's literally all just like you don't know what's real. You got
yeah,
people out here saying that we got a new Biden that's like a foot taller. Like, you literally don't even know what the heck is going on anymore. And honestly, I mean, I know many people have made this comparison, but it's like the movie Idiocracy. It's like we're almost there. Like, I mean, literally, it almost feels like we're almost to that point where it's like, yeah, I don't even know. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I saw Trump at the Bitcoin conference, it just seems like it's just Terry Crews up there just trying to, just trying to get people excited about rah rah and but he's not really going to do anything. He's not, he's not smart enough to do anything. But I don't know. We will see. We'll see what happens.
yeah. I mean, and then sometimes to your point, like these things don't happen right away. Like it may be until the next election that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like because it's like the narrative is put out there, the dialogue starts, but we know government is so slow.
Mm.
But look, I'm optimistic. The Fit 21 bill situation really surprised me and a lot of folks because no one saw it coming. So maybe because of the crypto industry raised $200 million for the super PAC, that's going to
Yeah, that was
carry weight.
huge.
Oh, we need to
Yeah.
pay attention. We need to get our asses going, right? Or we're going to get left behind.
One other thing I was just curious about, we had the Bitcoin ETF approved, obviously a lot of inflows into that so far. And then we had the Ethereum ones approved, did decent, obviously not to the level of Bitcoin, but still Ethereum's ETFs have done good. Do you think we actually get, do you think they're, that with all the hype that could possibly come in the next few months, do you think that they would approve like a Solana ETF or other various ones? Or do you think, no, I think they're going to look at that as something that comes maybe the next cycle where they start to look at other various blockchains.
That's the big question everybody has. And I spoke to an ETF expert yesterday, and he said, I'm not optimistic if that a Solana ETF is going to get approved this cycle because the pathway has been you have to have a futures in place. And then usually there's a
Mm,
time period where they see the correlation between the futures and the spot market before
yeah,
approving the spot ETF. However, he did say if BlackRock files for it, it's going to happen.
yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
it's all in Larry Fink's hands and what he decides to do. And honestly, like I've seen so many of the posts, and maybe that's why I've kind of like this past little, lull we had in the markets, kind of just like I took another step back, a lot of it from social media and just even my own channel and what I was doing, just because I was like, man, like the space just seems like it's losing its some of the things at the beginning when I first got in 4 years ago of like, being against, big business and being against, the big men and trying to like actually disrupt certain things. And now it just seems like everyone's just like, hey, if BlackRock wants to, own all of our Bitcoin, own all of our this, own all of our that, like that's fine. Like we'll just follow them because they're going to pump our bags, or everyone's literally just pandering to whoever or whatever is going to pump their bags. And honestly, that's where I'm still like, that's why I like some of the communities I'm in where it's like, no, like we're not worried about pumping. We're not worried about memeing it to, this or doing shady things behind the scenes to pump the numbers. Like it's just truly trying to build something to disrupt an industry or create something that's fun and exciting and new. And I feel like that's still like what we need to get back to in crypto,
Right.
because it seems like a lot of it, like I said, it's just now it's just, the big wigs, they handle so much power that it's just trying to bet on what they're going to do and what they're going to pump and stuff like that. I even saw Coinbase, I was because I was deep in the base ecosystem and there was tons of memes, and then Coinbase just comes out and launches like their Mr. Miggles thing, and I was like, oh man, like you had so many communities that were building and you guys just decided to launch your own and pump it. And then and even they had like workers who obviously were working for Coinbase saying like, oh, this is the most money I've ever made on a coin. And I'm like,
Wow.
why are like this is just so stupid. Like why are we still here? I don't know. That's still kind of where I'm at. I'm hoping that, like I said earlier, like what's going to bring retail in. I'm still hoping that there's real utility and real like things that come to really drag people in outside of just like, oh yeah, I hold crypto, I hold Bitcoin on Coinbase, or I hold Ethereum on Coinbase. It's like, no, I'm actually excited about this project because it's building something cool. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And as you were saying that, I thought about a scale of like CeFi and DeFi. And that
Hmm.
scale, while initially it was heavily weighted on DeFi and decentralized exchanges and so forth, CeFi is starting to weigh
Creep
down a
in.
bit more with these ETFs. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking like, are we going to lose a lot of the self-sovereignty, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
Bitcoin and the ability to be your own bank and the true ethos of why Bitcoin was created. And I hope not.
Yeah.
It's hard because the human emotions come into play with greed, right? Oh, my bags are gonna pump. So yeah, BlackRock, come on in, Larry, it's all good. But what do we I still think personally, I think the ETFs are a Trojan horse. It's a double-edged
Yeah.
sword. It's great because it brings in a ton of capital, but now everything is controlled by the government because BlackRock
Yeah.
feeds straight into the government. They report on everything. You know how it works, right? And are they going to do what they did to the real estate market and put tons of leverage and crash it 10 years from now, right? Like we saw in
Yeah.
2008.
And that's, I mean, and I follow many people in the space who are still, warning about a very big potential crash in many markets, in the coming years. We don't know if it's going to be, next year, 2 years, 3 years from now, but the entire space has, we know that that's what causes these massive crashes is leverage in the space. And, I wouldn't put it past them, let's say that, especially if they want to, what's the number one thing to get retail excited about crypto again? Push Bitcoin up above 100K, push it to 150K, cause Ethereum to go to 15K, Solana to go to 1,000 or 2,000, and then there you go. You'll have everyone and their sister and brother and aunt and uncle, buying crypto, even if they don't even know what the heck they're buying, they'll still be buying it.
Yeah. So folks, be careful out there. Don't be part of the dumb money crowd. We've talked about it a lot on these episodes. Like, have a plan, know where you're buying, learn to read the charts because there will come that euphoric phase where everybody's going to go crazy. And like you said, Bitcoin over 100K, Ethereum over 10K, whatever, Solana 1,000. And unfortunately, that's the time to be selling. And if you're buying, you're going to get wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll still happen. You always think that like, though, there's no way I'd be buying it there. I'd be selling, but I don't know. They have a way every single time of, just spinning it and having, these massive accounts pumping and talking about it and showing you signs and showing you charts that show why it's going to keep running. But, you, like you said, you have your own plan or you're going to get rugged.
So one of the catalysts that we could hear about today is Jerome Powell saying we potentially the Fed's going to cut rates, and then that could spark the markets because they see the timeline or the horizon to easy money, right? Cheap
Hmm.
capital, and then back to QE. One could argue Janet Yellen's been doing like pseudo QE 2.0, where the Treasury, I think they announced it this morning that they're injecting more liquidity and all that, right? But did we know overall retail markets, the average Joe and Jane, when they hear rate cuts, oh, mortgage rates going down, borrowing money is cheaper. Oh, that cycle is going to come back. But historically, there's been a crash around when
Yeah.
the Fed truly pivots. But if Jerome Powell comes out today and says, we're cutting 25 basis points or whatever, I think the markets are going to go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and that's what I think. Everything is still like, Bitcoin has literally been ranging for the past, what, 3, 4, 5 months in this 60, 70K period. And it looks like to me, from a charts perspective, from, certain indicators that it's ready for that God candle to send it. I would not be surprised if there is that initial shock, oh, they're folding, QE is going to be coming, more, easier money. The global M2 money supply is ready to print more. Like obviously they want to, and so it would definitely make sense. But there is that thing in the back of my head that says, okay, even if we do see a massive run up, we do have to worry because it is historically correct that when we see rate cuts actually, when they actually cut, that's where we do see, recessions, whether they're long, short, could be a year, could be 2 years, could be like a COVID. I mean, obviously, COVID was a flash type, spot. We can't really consider that one. But, other ones, you have to be ready for, the reverse and the onset of what comes with that. But honestly, if you're just looking, you zoom out of the charts and you just look at the S&P and the Nasdaq and all these things, they're just up and to the right so violently that the words from Mark Yesko, because I've had him on our show many, many times. And it's just like with exponential, the way that these things move exponentially, it's like by the time you figure out that shit's hit the fan, it's already too late. Like that last leg happened so fast and so violent, and then it all just comes crashing down. I just feel like that's where we're at. Like we're not gonna have, it's not gonna be this huge long, like, oh, you can kind of see it coming. I feel like, the pump's gonna happen, everything's gonna shoot up, and then you're gonna see the mother of all crashes on the other side of it. And I don't think anyone's gonna be planning for that.
Yeah, and this is why you got to have a plan, right? You dollar
Yeah.
cost average out, know your price point, take profits, don't get greedy. It doesn't last forever. It doesn't keep going up forever, man. Like we've been talking about for a long time. And I personally have a spreadsheet. I know what price points I'm taking profits at. I do tweak it from time to time based on what's happening with the
Yeah.
metrics and chart analysis. Like if there's certain Fibonacci levels being hit, there's golden cross, whatever, all these
Right.
different
Yeah. Yeah.
signals. You want to be paying attention to all of that and have a plan because, dude, I want to walk away from this bull market with money in my pocket. That's my
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing too, because I keep kind of running through my own head, like, all right, what's the best thing to put it into, to actually survive on the other side? Because that's the one thing. It's like, do you sell into the dollar when they're, possibly about to do a ton of QE and then lose, the value that way by just the dollar being printed to oblivion, or do you put it into Bitcoin, even though yes, it could fall, but historically it's only fell like, 50, 40, 50, 60% in, the past ones and maybe not won't fall as much as 80, 90. Do you put it in real gold? Do you buy land? I definitely think there's a good mixture of things to do, but it's definitely smart to have some of those avenues, already ready. And and the cool thing is there's tons of ways to either buy real, and this is why I'm excited for when I talk about real utility coming to the space is I want to be able to easily, right? Easily take the gains from crypto and maybe, me and my wife, we have an '05 Prius. We want to buy, a 2018 Prius. I can go to a dealership and buy a Prius with, a new Prius with the crypto gains, right? Or I want to buy a house, or I want to buy or just invest in real estate, or I want to, upgrade this or buy gold. Like I want more actual use cases for the gains I get in crypto. And that's where I still feel like it just sucks. Cause right, I've been there in multiple, runs, whether it's a meme coin or whatever. It's like it pumps so much, you take the profit out, but then what do you do with it, right? Where does it sit
Yeah.
to actually earn you something else other than just, do I just reload the gun and
Yeah.
keep firing until I miss, right?
Well, for me, like I can just share my and everybody's financial situation is different, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're looking to buy a house, that could help put a down payment, right? And then maybe a
Yeah.
nice one, or it can help pay off your mortgage, which is a goal I have. That's my personal goal. I want to eliminate as much debt as possible where I am not owing tons of money. So I
Yeah.
use some of my crypto profits in full transparency to pay off my car loans because that is a bad debt. Now,
Yeah.
mortgage is not so much a bad debt because your asset is appreciating versus a car is depreciating. So my plan, and you brought up a great point. I have that phase two plan. After I take profits, what am I doing with that money?
Yeah.
Part of it paying off debt. Some of it's going to a retirement account, which I have in a TradFi, with a
Yep.
financial advisor. Third, I'm going to look to reinvest in the bloody bear market that's coming.
Right. Got to
I
save
will,
some.
yeah, I'll be buying Bitcoin, ETH, and all that stuff again. Third, it's going to be fourth, I'm going to look to diversify into other assets. So I have that retirement account. I'm going to put some into like the stock market and which S&P 500, NASDAQ, and let it grow for the next 10 years. That's my
Yep.
outlook on it. And then maybe go into real estate. But a real estate, it requires management and so forth, but that's my plan.
Yeah, yeah. And like I say, it's great plans. I'm just waiting. I'm really excited for the day where we actually it's just easier to move crypto around, not have to worry about like, oh, how can I get it off that cheapest? Like not even having to get it off, just selling as USDC. Like if you're holding on Algorand, USDCA, if you've got it on base in your USDC, just being able to go and use it, right? Use it for life. So you don't have to have, a bank account, right? Even maybe Coinbase could evolve into a bank one day that allows more features and different things like that to be able to have a mortgage and cars and loans and things like that. But I don't know. I really hope that that's coming. And we even saw some of it with I think Van Eck or even some of these other big managers saying that with their tokenization projects, like I want to see more things get tokenized on the chain on the blockchain so that we can actually see more utility. And I think we even had one of those on the talking points where California was tokenizing was it driver's license or like that information
Uh,
on the Avalanche blockchain?
Car titles.
Yeah, got car titles. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
mean,
not
that's,
glamorous, right? No one's going to get excited and go buy Avalanche probably based off that. Maybe someone did, but needless to say, it's like those are still, slow things that start getting incorporated. It's like, okay, if we can do this, now what can we do?
yeah, dude, I think that's a great example of the real world application of these blockchains. I mean, and John Woo of Ava Labs said they tokenized, I think it was like 30 something million car titles.
Yeah.
So that's just think about that. And he said it speeds up the process to just about 15 minutes versus days and weeks of trying to
Yeah.
transfer stuff. And it just makes things more efficient, more trustworthy, more transparent, and it eliminates the fraud aspect, right? Because it's not paper,
Yeah.
I white out and I do a copy, it's on the blockchain. So I think we are starting to see the real world application. And I know people are also using putting house deeds on the blockchain as
Yep.
well. Proppy was doing that. And there's a bunch of other applications, but this is a big one because I think a lot of people can relate to it. I have a car. Oh,
Yeah.
I've gone through the process of trying to do the title stuff. So news like this needs to be amplified. It's incredible.
Yeah. And that's still like, one of the things I remember seeing was so much was like healthcare stuff too back in, I feel like the last big bull run and seeing a lot of how like, when you go to these, doctors or you're even like eyeglasses and stuff like that, it's like you have no access to your information. Like all of it is kept by them. And I remember when I wanted to go get new glasses, and I tried getting my old prescription. I knew my eyes weren't worse, right? But it was past 2 years the dentist thing that I went and got my eye exam done at wouldn't give me that information, wouldn't give me my information because they knew that if I had it, I could go online and get glasses shipped to my door. But they do that because they keep you in this thing like, no, you got to come back. You got to pay us to do a new eye exam, and we're going to keep you in house. And it's kind of like Apple, I guess you could say, with like these big corporations and entities, they lock you into this like thing where like it's really hard to get out. But once you get out, then it's like it's so freeing and you can actually choose what you want to do. And I feel like that's something else I'm super excited to see is more control over like our information, and these doctors or whoever you want, you give access, right? They can connect their wallet to your records and but you would still have to grant them access and things like that. Like that's something
Right.
else that I think from a self-sovereignty standpoint that'll be really bullish. And honestly, I think that's also what will push people into crypto and seeing the good in it. Maybe not so much in certain countries, but in others, it'll be a huge, huge step forward.
Yeah, great point. And I've heard some people talk about, in addition, with you controlling your data and all these things, you can then sell it to advertisers or who you choose. Essentially, you could
Yeah,
monetize it. So versus now, a wide cast net is thrown out there and they target you and retarget you and all that stuff and cookie you and so forth. The future won't be like that. It will be on the blockchain, and then you can choose. Oh, I kind of like this brand.
yeah,
Would they like to market to me? Pay
yeah.
me. Pay me. Send
Exactly.
me some tokens or
Especially if
something.
you have a large, following right now. Most social media platforms, and this is a huge thing that I still think, honestly, with this next big move up we see in the markets, I still think SocialFi and this whole idea of earning, with your social media account, I still think it's really important because right now, stuff like Instagram, Facebook, right? If you're good, right, you don't get paid. They just pay you in
Right.
getting more noticed, right? They'll push your content to more people so that you get more followers, but you still then have to go and sell, right? Or market yourself in a way to earn something, whether that's a Patreon or whether it's selling merchandise or I don't know, something else maybe that you do, or even like doing a live stream and people donating. But like you're still not earning it. They're earning, I've been a YouTuber, they're earning 90%, but because they're putting the ads and earning it based off you instead of you being able to earn it and then choose them like, hey, yeah, I'll let you do that, but I'm
Hmm.
going to earn this. I feel like the ball just needs to get shifted to where it's in more of a more in your court to be able to, say who makes money off of you and in what ways. But I
Yeah.
don't know. It's still such a big one, but I do think social media is going to play a huge deal in the
Hmm.
coming move. And I think even though Elon Musk says he's going to stay out of it, come on now, you own X, like literally, it's the biggest space where people talk about crypto. Like, there's no way he's going to completely stay. I mean, he even changed his profile picture to laser eyes for like 2 days, and there literally a meme coin was created, and then he changed it like 2 days later, and it rugged. But like, he's going to have an effect in the crypto space, and he's kind of foolish to think he wouldn't.
Yeah, especially Tesla and SpaceX both hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
Yeah,
He's been public about he owns Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin.
yeah.
So in one way or the other, what it's direct or indirect, he's gonna influence things. Um, and we got to talk about this topic. Yesterday we heard that the SEC is removing altcoins like Cardano, Solana, Matic, and so forth out of the Binance lawsuit. We don't have full confirmation, but it's some things people are seeing based on an updated court filing. This is significant, and it could
Yeah.
be a signal of the SEC capitulating because over the past month, they dropped the investigation to Ethereum. They approved the Ethereum spot ETF. Just I think 2 weeks ago, they dropped the cases against Stacks and Binance stablecoin, and now all of a sudden this. So something interesting is happening here.
I want to say it was like a month and a half ago, maybe it was more that we were talking about when CZ was going into prison and what, the effect of that on the market. I'm just saying, like, what if he comes out, he gets like released? I have no idea if they do something like that. Well, it's like with all this lawsuit against Binance and dropping things, like they somehow lose that part and like he gets like an early release or something, and like that spurs on the next like bull market for altcoins and things. But no, I think it's just showing the SEC's hand that they were trying to come in heavy-handed on crypto and just throw lawsuits around frivolously and just throw claims around frivolously, especially with Gary Gensler, you know, literally contradicting himself with saying Algorand's a great technology, you could build Uber on top of it, and then saying, oh wait, no, Algorand's not a technology, it's a security. I mean, you really can't trust the guy. And I think even like with what we said earlier, you have Trump, who's obviously very at least right now in the polls, seems like he's going to win, saying that, hey, I'm going to fire you on the first day if I get elected. Maybe he's starting to question his alliances with, people like Elizabeth Warren and saying like, hey, should I be siding with him if I want to keep my job, if I turn tail now and start pushing the Ethereum ETFs through, if I start, maybe trying to help pro crypto things, maybe he doesn't lose his job. I think his job's gone regardless. I don't think
Right.
he's going to stay in, but nonetheless, maybe he's trying to save face for a future job that he might want in some ways. But nonetheless, the SEC is taking big L's left and right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise me because most of these tokens are not securities. Most of them are utility tokens. I think there should be a whole new classification for utility tokens for these blockchains that are tokenizing assets. I don't really see why it's such a thing that he harps on with trying to label everything as a security. Obviously, I think some of it's just he wants control over it, but it didn't surprise me, but it's good to see, especially being someone who's a holder of some of those tokens. We're hoping now that it starts to get to the right way of maybe new legislation, new categories where it's not under the SEC or the CFTC, and it's a new thing in its own.
Yeah, great point. And I'm just so pissed off and annoyed. Like Gary Gensler and the SEC, what a mess, man. It's like a
Yeah.
dumpster fire. And uh,
I
you
don't even
know,
know how he walks around in life and doesn't just get slapped or something. Like I don't even know how he's safe. Like
it
dude's
has to.
just
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was gonna mention that. Like, does he have bodyguards? Like,
he has
like,
to.
because
Like,
it's not only on crypto side, like in the stock market and
yeah.
with holding with Citadel and all people, if you see this guy in the street, somebody will run up and hit him. And look, I'm not advocating for that, but I
Yeah,
can see that.
definitely not. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, even, it's wild it's especially when you take a step back and you just see how manipulated all the markets are. I mean, even with guys like Jim Cramer and some of the things they say, it's like you're literally attacking, certain things in this area, but turning the biggest blind eye to like the biggest manipulations that are happening right in front of you that you could actually do something about, especially when you always like, his slogan of wanting to protect the investors, right? And get them disclosures and all this stuff. It's like that's not protecting investor, the average retail investor. You're just protecting big investors and big, management funds and trying to help them in any way you can. But I don't
Mhm.
know. To see him take more L's and to see them lose more lawsuits and pull out, it just seems like the war is won. They're retreating. And now, like I said, we just need the God candles to come in and let's raise the victory flag.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there. So I think we can end it on that note, man.
Yeah.
And everybody, have a plan, like I'm saying, because as David mentioned, this thing, God candle can pop up, things can go crazy really fast, and it doesn't last a long time.
Yeah, I will say this: summer times are traditionally, the lethargic point of cycles. I will say that
Yeah.
the stock market did decent during this summer. Crypto traded sideways and mostly down, so that's kind of on par there. But the fall, winter, and spring is where markets can go wild. So be on the lookout for the next 3, 6 months. I think it's possible we see a top for most markets. And so yeah, make sure you have a plan. Sell your runners if it's up 10x, 20x, 30x. Don't, don't let that idea creep in that, but it could go higher. It could also drop 90%.
100%.
Take your gains, buy a Prius, don't buy a Lambo. And that's my advice.
Yeah, and play the long game too. Like I've been telling people, look, maybe you don't become a millionaire this cycle, but you make a few 100,000.
Yeah.
That's okay. You've
That's
made money.
huge.
That's
Yeah,
huge,
that is
man.
huge.
And I've learned that lesson, and I've been through multiple bull market cycles, and um, this cycle, obviously, I'm hoping to make more money. But if I don't, and I just walk away with some nice profits, that's okay. I'm walking away with more money than I've had and
Yeah.
more financial freedom than I had before, and I can reinvest and grow the pot. So
Yeah. I think, yeah, you said it there, financial freedom, because like you have 250K sitting in the bank, even if it's just sitting in USDC, that pressure that's released, it literally, and it makes your mind clear to then you can make smarter moves. You can be like, you know
yes,
what, I can be more risky with say 20K, whereas before 20K was like it was my life savings, and you turned it into
right.
250. Well, now you can take that 20. You could be a little bit more risky with it, right? You could find different avenues and ways to make it. So yeah, definitely make sure don't go, shooting for the moon and or shooting for the, shoot for the stars long term, but don't miss the moon if you get there and trying to, come back to Earth.
Great point, David. Great stuff, man. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for joining me.
thanks for having me on and see you guys next time.
Everybody, check out David's channel. The next block link will be in the description.